a participar en el debate sin derecho a voto, de acuerdo con las disposiciones de la Carta y el artículo 37 del Reglamento Provisional del Consejo. Los miembros del...
On the 6th of April, the de facto forces moved armored vehicles into Attiri in the Irish sector of UNIFIL and fired mortars, heavy machine guns at the Irish contingent. On the 7th of April, the fire continued intensely on the Irish contingent, and one Irish soldier was wounded and later died. 2 other Irish soldiers were wounded at the same time. On this occasion, the Irish contingent returned controlled fire. On the same day, 9 Irish soldiers were taken hostage in the village of Safa al-Hawa. On the 8th of April, the de facto forces made a threat to kill these 9 Irish soldiers unless the Irish contingent withdrew from its positions at Attiri. After intensive efforts, however, those hostages were released at nightfall. On the 10th of April, the de facto forces fired at a vehicle carrying the Deputy Force Commander, Brigadier Nielsen of Norway, and others in the same area. On the 12th of April, there was another exchange of another firing by the de facto forces at Attiri, in which 1 Fijian soldier was killed. The Irish troops in Attiri returned the fire, and in this exchange 1 militia soldier was killed and 2 were wounded. Again, threats of reprisal were made by Major Haddad. On that same day, the de facto forces took 4 Irish soldiers hostage from a post in the enclave. On that same day also, you will recall, the headquarters of UNIFIL was shelled extensively, causing very widespread damage. On the 13th of April, the de facto forces demanded that the villagers of Attiri pay 40,000 Lebanese pounds, apparently as compensation for the soldier who had been killed, or deliver the bodies of 2 Irish soldiers. And this demand was repeated in various forms later on. The situation remained tense on the 14th and 15th of April, and on the 17th of April, there was an attack on the observation post Hin, and the other observation posts, which are on the border, were also under siege. After very intensive efforts, it was finally arranged that these observation posts could be relieved and resupplied. But in observation post Ras, the Irish soldiers who had been there remained until the area could be checked for mines. That brings me to today, when, as you will see in the report we put out this morning, S13888 adds 2 and 3. 3 Irish soldiers were stopped by the de facto forces on their way to observation post Ras. They were separated from the others with them. 1 was taken to an adjoining field and shot in the abdomen and legs. He was subsequently evacuated to the Norwegian hospital in Nakura, where he was operated on. The other 2 soldiers were taken captive and led away, and every effort was then made to negotiate their release. In a report from Nakura, in the middle of the morning, New York time, we were informed that these 2 soldiers were being held by the de facto forces. Brigadier General Levran of the Israeli Defense Forces assured our people in Nakura of their well-being at that time, and indicated that all efforts were being made to secure their release. At about 12:30 this morning, New York time, Lieutenant Colonel Gal of the Israeli Defense Forces informed the Force Commander, General Erskine, that the captive soldiers had been killed. And some 2.5 hours later, the bodies of these soldiers were brought to Nakura after being handed over to the UN observers. This murder of unarmed soldiers can only be described as a killing in cold blood. following on repeated threats by the de facto forces against the lives of members of UNIFIL and especially those of the Irish contingent. Thank you, Mr. President.
Doy las gracias al Secretario General Adjunto de Asuntos Políticos Especiales por su declaración. Han convenido todos.
I have now to express with equal sadness condolences to the government and people of Ireland, not only on the loss of the Irish soldier who died 2 days ago as a result of the injuries he suffered in the same clashes, but also on the senseless murder of 2 Irish soldiers by villagers in southern Lebanon today. Mr. President, Israel condemns unreservedly these indefensible acts. Irrespective of their background, there can be no justification whatsoever for the perpetration of such unconscionable activities. The government of Israel share the grief and the tragedy which has befallen the families of the Irish soldiers who have lost their lives so tragically in the ranks of UNIFIL.